bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's March 11th. It is a match day. It is a match day in Mexico, a match day at the Estadio Azteca for Atlanta United facing Club America. I am in Mexico City right now. John will be headed this way in a few hours. John's hanging out at the airport this morning.
Check. Yes, he is on the concourse, one gate away from the plane, which is slated to take off after the show. And just looking forward to getting down there and seeing the same things you did last night. My first question for you this morning, what was it like to be on the ground at the Estadio Azteca?
I mean, it's a giant stadium, and it just you get out on the field and you look up, and it's just huge. It looks like it keeps going up and up and up. That's just a taste, though, because it was empty. You know, there was no noise in it. There was no opposing fans in it. There was none of that. So it was very cool. Just for me and being a fan of the game, it was cool to be in a building that's hosted two World Cup finals, that's hosted some of the biggest games that I've ever seen, some of the biggest games, in this continent, some of the biggest games in world soccer history. It's pretty amazing to have that opportunity. So all that was great. It was a lot of fun. It was great to see training and kind of get a gauge for this group with Atlanta United. And look, I mean, they didn't appear intimidated. They didn't appear scared. They didn't appear worried. None of that really seemed to be in play. They appeared like they always appear. I mean, a team that wants to play, a team that I think is excited about this opportunity to try to slay a giant in their house in Club America, who, if you saw the quotes that Miguel Herrera gave yesterday, he kind of wanted to remind everybody that Club America is that team. They are that giant in CONCACAF. They are that team that, in his words, is competing with River and Boca to be the best in, he said, continent. And I know a lot of people have really got bent out of shape about this. Like, look, a lot of people consider, outside of the United States, because of the way geography was taught, a lot of people consider North and South America to be of one continent. Stop picking, like, Miguel Herrera is dumb. He's not dumb at all. When you're talking about soccer in this part of the world, Club America is one of those teams. They have won this tournament, CONCACAF Champions League, the predecessor, the Cup, more than anybody else. They've got 10 trophies in CONCACAF in total, more than anybody else. And when you start talking about that level of dominance, that's where they want to be. They have participated in the Libertadores in the past, and now CONCACAF teams are not invited to that competition. We'll see if that changes again at some point. And Herrera talked about some comparisons between the two competitions, but this is a big team in a big building with a lot of, I think, big pressure on this match. And we will see how Atlanta United handles it. But just the vibe I got from watching this team train a bit last night, they're loose. They're ready for it. They're not intimidated.
And, remember, this is a team in Atlanta United that played Club America. Yes, it was for the Campeones Cup. Yes, it was up here in Atlanta. But they've seen what Club America has been able to throw at them. They've gotten wins before. And as you said, not intimidated by the surroundings down there. Yes, it was an empty building tonight. I think that you had said that on social media that they're looking for a crowd of about 50,000, which would make it about half full there at the Estadio Azteca.
That's what we've heard. We've heard
I'm just looking
some
forward,
rumblings about potentially 50,000 in attendance tonight.
Yeah, and to be in that environment is an entirely different animal than being in an empty stadium, although you do get to understand the history and everything that's tied to it when you get to practice on that pitch. But Atlanta United, as you said, not intimidated heading into this match tonight, and it's a different animal when you've got that crowd and that cauldron of noise that everyone associates with it when you've seen it in a bunch of different competitions. So just looking forward to seeing this new test for Atlanta United as they are in a story building tonight. Absolutely looking forward to it, and a lot of other folks are too.
Yeah, it's worth one. It's definitely worth staying up for. So, I mean, whatever you got to do when you get home from work, take a nap, get up about 9 o'clock. It's worth the commitment tonight, and it is a commitment, and I totally understand that. But this is going to be a big moment, I think, for Atlanta United. Monterey was big last year. Monterey is an emerging giant in Mexico and in North America, Central America, South America. It's an emerging club. Club America is it is the club. It's the grande. It's the equipazo. It's the big club, and it's the measuring stick. And winning a Campeones Cup is nice. It is, but this is where you're truly measured in Champions League competition on your continent. And Atlanta United has a huge opportunity to make a statement that while they don't have the years and decades of history that Club America does, they are an equipazo. They are a giant club as well. And you have to handle these moments. So it's going to be fascinating to see what the lineup is tonight for Atlanta United, what they do to deal with not just the atmosphere at the Estadio Azteca, but the altitude and the air quality and the legs getting heavy, because that's going to be a big challenge for an Atlanta United team that's a couple months into its season, including preseason training. You're not at full mid-season, late season fitness levels. It's just very hard to be. So it's gonna hit at different points in the match. I mean, I've seen games here before, and it feels like teams can have problems early on with it, and then teams can get through it for a while, and then it hits them again. And wherever that minute is, I don't know. It's different for everybody, but there's going to be different moments where different guys are going to be gassed and are going to need to recover, and also, hopefully recover to stay in the match. And then also the three substitutions are going to be very important in this to keep this team as fresh as it can be. And it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be very difficult. This is one reason why Club America has that level of dominance. When you look at them in CONCACAF play, it's not just something that, oh, well, MLS teams struggle with it, but nobody else does. No, it's not that. It's any team outside of Mexico struggles coming in here, and they have historically. So it's a tough place to play for a lot of reasons, and that's going to make it difficult tonight. But as we've said, it's not a situation where Atlanta United has to get a 3-0 win. It's not a situation where, honestly, they have to get a win, period. It's a situation where they have to manage the 90 minutes that are in front of them tonight.
We've had folks asking questions, giving predictions. The Bailey Daily, the SDH Copa Especial is up and running. Go to @jbailey86 on Twitter. Give your predictions there. A lot of you've given them so far. We'll get into those on the show. But you've mentioned lineup, so let me go to Chris Ashley's question out of the blocks here this morning. He wants to know if we know a status on Escobar coming into tonight yet.
He's not playing tonight. That was already established. Don't know what his long-term status is. Don't know if he's back for the weekend. And that's where, when you're dealing with muscular types of injuries like Escobar and Robinson, it's a little hard to set a definite return date. Hopefully both are back for next week in CONCACAF Champions League. I think Saturday might be difficult just because, they're able to train on the side. They're able to do recovery work in Atlanta. But you're only going to have the one training session, which will be pretty light on Friday ahead of the Kansas City match. You might want to hold them out until they are fully recovered next week. Hopefully next week anyway. But not available tonight.
And Joey Logan has put his starting 11 in as well, and we can get into that as we go. But Niitoga 95 this morning. So technically it's NY to GA 95 once I
Yes.
finally looked at the emojis and the pictures that are attached. Is it me, or is it the team? Is the team more physical, meaning Atlanta United this year, than in the past? And if so, do you think there'll be enough to match the physicality of Club America?
I wouldn't really thought of it as physical. I think they're maybe a little scrappier and physical. I don't know, and this is just how different people define it and look at it in terms of soccer context. When I go physical, I'm thinking size. I'm thinking like how they play, and I don't really see Atlanta in that. Like I don't see Atlanta as that kind of team, and Club America will have some size advantages, but I think Atlanta is a team that has a lot of fight in it and a lot of scrappiness in it, and that's gonna help in moments like this. I think they can handle the physical presence of Club America. I think you've got a good combination with Atlanta of players who have the skill to overcome it, and also that that kind of fight that we're seeing out of a guy like Barco, who Barco's an incredibly talented player who you might not expect to be a guy who is tracking back, making a 40-yard sprint back and getting stuck into a tackle. And then if he has to get into somebody's face, he'll get into somebody's face. You've got a player like Eric Remedi who I don't know if you'd call him physical in the sense that he's not a big imposing presence, but he's a guy in the midfield who you don't want to run up against. He will bowl you over. He will get stuck in, as they say. He will give you that kind of game. Emerson Hyndman, with his time in Scotland, he knows what it's all about to be that kind of player. He can take care of himself and handle things for his teammates on the field. Jeff Lorenowitz can mix it up with anybody. I think Fernando Meza, with his time in Mexico, will have a complete understanding of the way Club America wants to approach this. And is interesting. Miguel Herrera yesterday in his media statements did give an 11 for tonight, and he did this ahead of the Campeones Cup as well. It's something that's not as abnormal in Latin America. It's probably a lot more common in Latin America than it is in the English-speaking media, for example, to do this. There is always the possibility that it changes. There's no, just because he said it in a press conference doesn't mean he has to stick with it. But it is a little different in that it's going to be a 4-4-2 slash 4-2-3-1. Andres Imbarguen is playing centrally, according to Herrera, and he'll play either with Henry Martin up top or kind of behind him a bit. Giovanni Dos Santos is out on the left, and the lineup that was given with Gio on the left and Luis Fuentes on the left, that feels like an opportunity for Atlanta United and a big opportunity for a player like Brooks Lennon to attack that side of the field and for Emerson Hyndman to, in possession, shade to that side of the field and create some mismatches because Fuentes is a veteran, but Fuentes is 33 years old. Giovanni Dos Santos is a veteran and an incredibly talented player. He's 30. He's also not really known for his defensive prowess. So you're going to have some opportunities on that side, attacking Club America's left, Atlanta's right. And you look at this Club America squad. Like in the back, they're big, they're strong. Bruno Valdez, Emmanuel Aguilera, strong center backs. But Atlanta United, I don't think has an issue with the physicality of it. I don't know if I'd call them a physical team. I'd call them a hard-working team, maybe a little bit more. All down to how you define things. But maybe it is a little different than previous years of Atlanta United, where this team feels like it can go into a street fight a little bit more and handle itself. And maybe that's a guy like Meza being in this group. We know when Escobar is healthy, he's a guy who loves that kind of style. Barco is turning into a player who I think relishes that kind of stuff. Remedi is up for that stuff. Hyndman is up for that stuff. I want to see Josetu in those kinds of moments. It's the Brazilian league is an interesting one because a lot of people look at the Brazilian game as all flair, all talent, skill, no defensive work, no physicality, and I think the Brazilian league has changed a little bit over the years where it can get very physical, and you see guys who don't have the skill level getting into some nasty tackles and things like that. So can Josetu, and we'll see how he handles himself in those moments. He actually got a yellow card for kind of a nasty tackle on Saturday, so maybe he can. Maybe he'll be just fine. Those are the things we'll be looking for here. But yeah, I wouldn't call them physical, but they can handle themselves for sure.
Then, since we're on the Club America lineup, also yesterday when we had Jessica Charman on, we're talking about Memo Ochoa. As of right now, once again, subject to change when the 11 came out for Club America, Memo Ochoa will not be starting in net, but it will be someone familiar for Atlanta United fans.
Yeah, it's somebody who has played against Atlanta United and Oscar Jimenez, a player who's played in this competition. And we also see this from time to time where you have two goalkeepers, and both are veterans. Ochoa, is the bigger name here, but Jimenez is 31. He came into the club 4 years ago. Uh, has been a backup slash starter. Has kind of been bounced around in recent years with Club America, but they'll give them the cup games and with competitions early on for Club America, with the Copa MX and then now CONCACAF Champions League. They are able to get some extra games for their goalkeeper, and some managers like to do that. Some managers trust that there won't be a drop off, and we've seen this over the years. We've seen it in England as well with goalkeepers getting the FA Cup and the League Cup games and maybe not being the first choice in league. It's a way to keep them fresh. And Jimenez is a quality goalkeeper. He's just a little bit different than Ochoa. Ochoa is hard to define, a little more unique in the way he plays the position. Jimenez is a little more traditional in the way he plays it.
And since we've mentioned Club America's 11 and we've mentioned some players for Atlanta United, there were a couple, I guess, for availability's sake, whether it's injury or paperwork. Any updates on folks like Castillo and Castro?
Castro, I mean, no, these updates have already been given. They're here. Castro is. Castillo is still recovering from injury. Do not believe he was here. I don't think that was ever intended. But Castro, Frank de Boer said he could see 30 minutes tonight. He's at that level of fitness and maybe just integration with the squad. It'd be a nice player to have come off the bench late in a match to run at tired legs. And just mentioned the left side for Club America. Castro has traditionally played on the right side as a winger. If with his inclusion, Atlanta goes to more of a 4-3-3 with Castro running at Giovanni Dos Santos, trying to get him to come chase him, and Luis Fuentes, then you have to kind of like that matchup, and that could be an ideal opportunity to give Castro his Atlanta debut.
I'm going to stick with questions here on Wall Pass Wednesday, get to predictions obviously later on. Malpinjo this morning, given the Club America starting 11, do you believe we should go with a faster, younger defense with Bello, the name mentioned in parentheses, or a more experienced defense?
You're probably looking a little more experience here, just because of the situation and the moments. But I think sometimes in those types of matches, you like the experience to start, but you pick your spot for that youthful exuberance to come in. And this is something we see a lot across all sports where sometimes when you have a young player who is maybe in a moment for their first time, it might be a little easier to have them watch the first part of the match and then come in. Helps them kind of gauge it a little bit, helps them see, the opportunities in front of them, things like that. Bello running at tired legs could be really important later on as well. And if you create a situation, because Bello can play higher up the field, we've seen him with Atlanta United too, play as a winger in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it. He can play high up the field, and he's got the explosiveness in the attack. So if the game is there and things fall the way that Frank de Boer would like for them to fall, to have Castro and Bello coming off the bench late, running at tired legs, That could be really, really interesting. And it's something that it's kind of hard to prepare for from Club America's side, and it could force them into using substitutions to bring on fresh legs to deal with Atlanta's fresh legs, which is where you want to be. If you can make a substitution that forces one out of the opposition, you've won that battle. And that can be very, very helpful. So we will see on that. I'll be curious to see what it looks like on that left side. I think Jake Mulroney has more experience in these types of moments than a George Bello. I mean, he hasn't played in the Estadio Azteca. Be curious to see how he handles altitude. That would be the same really for most anyone in the squad. So Mulroney just probably has a little bit more time with the team, a little more in sync. So it might be easier for him to get the start, wear people down with his runs forward, and then turn it over to a Bello in the last 30 minutes or so and let him go, or change the shape up a little bit and then bring on Bello a little bit higher up the field. That's a possibility as well. Sometimes when we look at lineups and especially substitutions and in changes that happen tactically, we get really hung up on being very rigid with formation and position. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, if you get into a night like tonight and you see that their right back is struggling, and he's been run into the ground a little bit by Jake Mulroney, and you look to your bench and you see George Bello, and yeah, he's a left back or he's a left wing back, but you put him in a role where he's not really as defensively responsible, and you let him play to those strengths of getting forward and running at people. You take that when you can. And that's what these moments can be where, yeah, you think outside the box. You put a guy in a different position and you can get something really interesting out of them. Bello could be that guy coming off the bench. And to have some explosiveness off the bench is always a good thing in these kinds of matches.
Kempsey this morning. Piojo has our respect, but he's a character, and I know everyone is looking forward to seeing him on the touchline as a part of the game tonight. Azteca is the most famous venue Atlanta United will have played in. Should there be a term for the best team in this hemisphere? Vamos Atlanta.
I'm sure there will be. And in the hemisphere, right now, Boca is going to fight anybody for that term. River would have a big say to it with what they've done in Libertadores over the last few years. Flamengo, being the current Libertadores champions, would have a strong say. But yeah, a performance from Atlanta in this series can put them into that kind of conversation as well. Piojo's great. I mean, Miguel Herrera, he is a character, but he is good for the game in that I think he's very open. He's very honest. His comments about VAR and CONCACAF needing to incorporate VAR into this competition for it to be taken seriously, 100% agree with. It's something that needs to happen next year. It should have happened this year. And whatever training is needed, it takes place. It has to happen because that's where the modern game is now. The Libertadores has VAR. UEFA Champions League has VAR. And most major competitions have VAR. Liga MX, MLS have VAR. VAR needs to be in the CONCACAF Champions League. Montreal would like to have that argument as well. They were
Yes, they would.
nodding in agreement with Piojo last night. I like Herrera. I like what he brings to the table here. I think his time as manager of El Tri and coming back to Club America and doing what he's doing there, he is a legend. And it's not just about his celebrations, but if you love the game, you love the way he shows his emotion about it. I think it's great. I think his comments about being the one of the top teams in this part of the world, I totally agree with. That's what Club America should be striving for, and we know the ambition that Atlanta United has, and that's absolutely what they're striving for. 4 years is a short period of time. There's still things to prove for Atlanta United. Like the question said, this is the biggest, most famous, iconic venue that Atlanta is playing in with a lot of soccer history in this building. Those things, do take some time to occur for a young club. But Atlanta has, I think, started to push that envelope really fast in terms of, coming in with a bit of an attitude and a lot of ambition and the resources and the people to make it happen and realize it. And this is another big test along that road. Monterey was a test, and Monterey, beat Atlanta last year. I don't think Atlanta has anything to feel bad about. They didn't get run off the park in either game. They got tired at the end of the first leg. This year they get an extra week to prepare for the first leg of the quarterfinal. That will help. That'll be a big help. You still have injuries coming into it like you did last year, but I think you're in a little bit better position to deal with them because you've been able to get some players time to help deal with it. It wasn't like last year where Julian Gressel rolled his ankle on Monday in training and he was out for the game on Wednesday in Monterey, and you had to move Mikey Ambrose over to play as a right wing back. Tonight you're going to be able to, even if you are turning to depth, you're going to be able to play guys in positions that they've gotten some time in, and that's going to help. That's going to help a ton. But ultimately, Miguel Herrera saying Club America is one of the best teams in this hemisphere, Atlanta United wanting to be one of the biggest teams in this hemisphere, South American teams arguing and saying, you guys shut your mouths up there, we're better than you too. All of it is ultimately decided on the field. And right now, Atlanta United's ability on the field is to win the CONCACAF Champions League and go to a Club World Cup and see what can happen there. You don't get that Inter-American Cup anymore between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. That's something I'd love to see come back. It hasn't happened since DC won it against Vasco da Gama in 1998. I would love to see that come back. If you're not going to have CONCACAF teams play in the Libertadores or the Sudamericana, and I totally understand it from CONCACAF's perspective, they want their own competition to be as big as it can be, and they have every right to do that. And CONCACAF Champions League has a ton of room to grow, and I think it will be a bigger and bigger competition every year and a more prestigious one. But if you're not going to have the overlap in the competitions, then bring back the Inter-American Cup, the Copa Interamericana. Bring that back and have the winner of the Champions League play the winner of the Libertadores. Now, again, the calendar years get a little bit screwy because you're going to have your CONCACAF winner in May, you're going to have your Libertadores winner in November. It's going to be hard to find it, and maybe it has to happen, after the Club World Cup. Maybe it's 6 months after the CONCACAF winner. I don't know. But it would be something that both confederations should come together and discuss, just like they should come together and discuss more frequent national team competition.
I'm going to hold off on since you mentioned Montreal last night and VAR, I'm going to put that to the side for a little while because we still have folks who want to talk about tonight. G-Rod is in this morning, and he says it may be blasphemy, but Meza seems better than LGP. Wrong?
He's different. I mean, I think just because the moves happen at the same time, it's been a big comparison, but they're completely different players. I've said all along that I think Meza is more of the Parkhurst replacement, more of that kind of player replacement. I think Miles Robinson turned into the LGP replacement with his game and his style. And last year, at times, you needed a calm head on the back line. Meza gives you that. So I don't think the comparison is really fair to either one because they're just different kinds of players. Just like if you compared Michael Parkhurst to Leandro Gonzalez Perez, they do different things. They play the same position, but they have different functions in it. So I think looking at what this team could use going forward, they did need that calm head on the back line. And if you're going to keep Miles Robinson long term and the offer comes, because if the offer doesn't come, Leandro Gonzalez Perez is here. I don't think there was an intention of moving him on after the season. You heard the comments from him on TIC in Argentina. He was very complimentary of Major League Soccer, of Atlanta. I don't think he was a player that they were looking to move on from. I think offers came, and they were the right offers for him and the team. And then you're able to pivot very quickly and get a different kind of player to replace him that's maybe a better complement for what you were looking to do with Franco Escobar, with Miles Robinson. So I don't think the comparison is really fair to either one, but I do think the style of play that Meza brings was something that was needed because of Michael Parkhurst's retirement.
Double A five stripes this morning. Atlanta United wants to control the game through possession. Yesterday, you mentioned that Atlanta United will want to rest with the ball. The more we have the ball, the more dangerous our attackers can be. If we have more than 55% of the ball, can we expect a 2-1 at OSG Nelson scoreline?
Uh, I don't know if it's going to play out that directly. I can see a scenario where Atlanta has that amount of the ball, but they don't have as many chances to create that. You could also see a situation where they have few chances, but they get the 2 goals. I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but the more I kind of think about it and look at how teams have approached these things before, I just I don't think there's a lot of value in packing it in and sitting deep and just putting everybody behind the ball and then booting it long and trying to go chase it. I think teams that do that in this building suffer, and it very rarely works. You're better off to find a balance in approaching the game in your way and playing in your way, but being a little more conservative in doing it because of the altitude, because of what that can take out of you. You do have to be thoughtful in your actions tonight. Those lung busting runs that we see players take off on, well, they're not going to literally bust lungs tonight, but they're going to take a lot more out of a player. You need to be judicious in picking your times to do it. And that's going to be a very big part of this tonight. But you can keep possession in moments where you can slow the game down. And I know that's not something that Atlanta United has really been known for in slowing a game down, but it's going to be needed at times tonight. Especially in those moments where maybe early on, you need to kind of get into the flow of the match, get into the feeling of the match. So maybe you're going to take it a little bit slower paced. Then in that second half, kind of early part where the lungs do start to burn and the legs start to get heavy, maybe those are the moments where you can slow it down again and knock the ball around a little bit. It looks like from the lineup that we're seeing, it looks like you're going to have some opportunities in the midfield. When you look at Club America's lineup and you see that they're going to play a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1. I mean, it depends on where you want to put Ibargüen. I don't think Ibargüen's a guy who's going to drop in and play as a true 8 and sit deeper. I think Ibargüen's a guy who wants to be higher up the field. So it's going to be Santiago Caceres and Richard Sanchez in those holding midfield roles. And you're going to have an opportunity to create some overloads there with Remedi, with Heinemann, but also with Pitti, with Barco, kind of dropping into that space and be able to play through it. And that's something where you can create opportunities, keep possession, and also not expend a ton of energy because you could have an overload on the field.
When it comes to, I'll give you an option here. You want to get into lineup ideas from folks and predictions, or do you want to talk about Montreal since you have mentioned Montreal and VAR and last night previously?
Well, why don't you talk about Montreal because you got to see it live. I've just seen highlights from watching it back.
And that was why I wanted to ask about that particular element of it. We had Escobedo in the middle again. And for those who remember Atlanta United, if I remember correctly, he was the away leg at Motagua. Is that right? Center ref?
Yes.
Okay. And the bouncy turf that we saw at the Big O once again reared its ugly head last night and created chances for Motagua. Motagua would just, Motagua, where am I going? I'm a series behind. Olympia. Olympia would send stuff forward, bounce on the turf, send it long, and Montreal's backline just, I don't know if exposed is the right word for having to turn around on short rest or what, but Olympia just continued to take advantage of it, bombing it long, couple of bounces, getting a bounce here and there, and before you knew it, it was 2-0 Olympia. But with Escobedo specifically, it was inconsistent. And it's a concern for me in the greater scheme of things, but when you have a center ref who is rivaling Chris Quick Trigger Penso when it comes to showing cards, and he did it early, then as the game goes along, you have what I thought were more serious infractions. The cards stay in the pocket. I wonder why Victor Wanyama was allowed to continue when he was given an early card and then trucks a guy from behind and it looked like he kneed him also at the same time as he was plowing through him. That to me should have been a second yellow. It wasn't a second yellow. And then you have players in that second 45 seeing that Escobedo isn't giving the cards for infractions that he was giving in the first 45. It got more serious. It got more chippy. It got, you had folks plowing through, and then you had folks who were trying to draw cards out of Escobedo, and that wasn't working as well, although fouls were called. And it was an uneven center reffing performance from Escobedo again, but Olympia gets out of there with the 2-1 win. And we did have a question about the Ty Dare goal from Nathan Pugh. Nathan Pugh is asking, the Montreal Golazo last night, was it better than the Philly Golazo? That's his Wall Pass Wednesday question.
I'm going to go with no, because that free kick from Philly was just completely unexpected. The Ty Dare goal was too. It was a little more from the run of play. So I'm still going to go with the Philly goal as a little bit better, but man, that Ty Dare goal was ridiculous.
It was. But yeah, for goal of the week across all competitions here in North America, I've got to go with the Glesnes free kick. But yeah, the Ty Dare goal was pretty nasty. And you've got to give Barrios, for me, I give Barrios a lot of credit for stepping in after Menjivar injures his groin early on, and shaky off the beginning, but I think he grew into the match, and you kind of just anticipate that there's going to be funky hops and that you've just got to pounce on the ball and make sure that you're very sure-handed. But yeah, I give Barrios a lot of credit for stepping in last night and being a part of that win between the sticks for Olympia too.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a difficult spot to be in when you have a goalkeeper go down injured and somebody has to come in, because you're just not expecting to do that. And you have to come into a bit of a cauldron. So full credit, because that's not easy to accomplish.
No, 20,000 showed up last night at the Big O for the match, and I give the Montreal fans a lot of credit once again for showing up and showing out and being loud. And then there was one time in the 65th minute where Thierry Henry, it was a corner situation for Montreal as they're trying to get an equalizer, and he's exulting the crowd and exhorting them, and they responded, and they got really loud. And kudos to Fox for handling the mix last night in Los Angeles and giving us who watched the match that feeling of just how loud and crazy the Big O got last night. So once again, big props to everybody who showed up last night there, even though it was a 2-1 loss. But Olympia coming out of there with 2 away goals and then getting the reverse leg back in their place next week. I think that if you go, hey, you're going to come out of there with 2 goals, the fact that you won 2-1 secondary, but the fact that you come out of there with 2 away goals, if you're Olympia, absolutely huge for you to go home.
Oh, critical. I mean, Montreal now has to win 2-0, which won't be easy to keep Olympia off the board in the home leg. Or if Olympia gets 1, then Montreal has to get 3, right? Yeah, that would
Yes.
then that would give Montreal the advantage. So I mean, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very difficult for Montreal to go on the road. The one thing is that we've seen this season is that they've been able to score goals on the road. They did in Saprissa. They did in Dallas. They have been able to find multiple goals on the road. I don't think they can keep a clean sheet, so they might need even more multiple goals on the road. But it's a huge win for Olympia, and that was a team that I thought was coming into this in strong form. I think they've really put a heavy focus on CONCACAF Champions League over their domestic league play, and it's showing in the standings. But this was a team that won everything in Honduras last year, and they come into CONCACAF Champions League unafraid of whoever they might see. Seattle, they weren't afraid of Seattle. They're not afraid of Montreal. They could be the Cinderella story of this year's CCL.
Yep. And uh, just for me, once again, I look at Barrios stepping in. You're not intimidated by your surroundings, and you've done it in previous rounds. You're ready to go. I think everything lines up for them. Uh, I was talking to folks last night, and I said, at home, I firmly anticipate what we talk about, where you find any bus in the garage, and you tap it over, slash the tires, set it on fire, and have that for your reverse leg. But it's going to be must see TV for those who are interested in Champions League, just to see how the response is down there next week when it comes to the reverse leg. When you'd like, we have the Easter candy purveyors for the rest of the matchups in Champions League, but we can address that at any time.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in just a bit. Doug Robertson's going to join us at the top of the hour with his thoughts on tonight's match, his prediction. We'll get into all of our predictions then. A couple other things from around the world of soccer that we need to touch on before that. If you missed it last night, Tijuana Cholos qualified for the Copa MX final. They've had a pretty poor league season, but they're going to get to a Copa MX final, and Leandro Gonzalez Perez was part of that. He scored a goal, and he also had a pretty nice tribute to Joseph Martinez afterwards.
Yeah.
It's been making the rounds. Really cool to see that from LGP, and glad he's finding some success there. I've been surprised about Tijuana's league form, but Copa MX, if they can win that, it's a trophy to add to the case. It'll help them in future seasons, and it's a good thing for them to focus on at the moment. There's 15 teams battling for 8 playoff spots in Liga MX. Tijuana is not one of them, and I don't see them getting into it. It's all on Copa MX for them. Let's see. We talked about this yesterday, but now you have an update on Ola Kamara and Joseph Mora. They are doubtful for DC's match with FC Cincinnati this weekend. That's going to be a problem for them. I think you look at DC's roster, it's fairly thin. You don't really have a great option up top in place of Ola Kamara at all. And you don't have a whole lot of options out wide in the back at all. And you might have to move Julian Gressel to a right back type of position to readjust a back line, and that's not ideal. It's a bit of a mess for Ben Olsen at the moment. That Cincinnati match has just gotten more complicated. Another thing that's made it complicated is CM De Jong has started training with Cincinnati, and he is cleared to play this weekend. So De Jong joining Cincinnati, making their attack even better. DC losing their striker and losing one of the defenders on their back line, making their defense weaker. That's going to be a tough matchup for them. Cincinnati could find their first win of the season. Another big moment this morning in the world of American soccer. A player who I think has been overlooked for a long portion of his career, Benny Feilhaber. 15-year career, 9 in MLS. He is retiring. He's announced his retirement this morning. One of the greatest moments in U.S. men's national team history. A absolute golazo in a Gold Cup final at Soldier Field to beat Mexico in 2007. He's got World Cup experience at the youth level and at the senior level. Feilhaber is a player who I think that with some teams kind of struggled to find a position. He's a 10, I thought. I always felt like he was a number 10. He could be an 8, an attack-minded 8, but I thought he was best suited as a 10. Very classy player on the field. Love his ability. We don't see many players like him when you look back at American soccer history. And he was a special one. So it's a sad day in that regard. I think it's a happy day when you look at everything he got to do in his career. National team, MLS, everything that came from his career is a celebration of what you hope for out of American soccer. So congratulations to Benny Feilhaber for just an amazing professional soccer career. And if you've listened to his podcast with Sal Zizzo, with Ike Opara, he's not going anywhere. We're going to hear plenty from Benny Feilhaber in American soccer, which is a good thing. His voice is needed. But on the field, Feilhaber is one of those players that I don't know if he ever truly got his due, and he deserved it because he's a special one in American soccer history.
Yeah, when you were mentioning overlooked, the word that came to my mind was underrated, and I don't know if that is the same thing. It's just that I think that he was left out of a lot of conversations about the most quality athletes that played. And for me, I just always thought that Failhaber should have been in more conversations that he wasn't in.
Yeah, I think he should have. He was a special player, and he had a pretty unique skill set for American players. So Benny Feilhaber has retired. We will be hearing plenty from him on the Benny Sal and Ike, the BSI podcast. Another bit of news this morning. This is being reported by outlets in South America, including TIC in Argentina. CONMEBOL is awaiting FIFA's decision to postpone March World Cup qualifiers due to the coronavirus outbreak. Asia has already canceled theirs in March and in June, or postponed them. They will be played. They'll just be played later, and we'll have to see what the schedule ends up looking like. So CONMEBOL is awaiting a FIFA decision. Now, if it's a FIFA decision that CONMEBOL is awaiting, I would assume that would be something that could cross over all confederations. And CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers don't start till later in the year. It's just friendlies in March, and we haven't heard anything from U.S. Soccer about any changes to their friendlies, which were scheduled to be played in Europe in the March window. I've not seen an update from the U.S. Soccer Federation on anything there. But now it's starting to get, I think, even more complicated. It's going to get more complicated in the U.S. potentially now with Seattle joining San Jose as a city where large gatherings are about to be not banned, but blocked for the time being. And it has not happened yet. There's a difference. I think one thing that you have to keep in mind is when a recommendation is made versus when an order is decreed. And in San Jose's case, they are not going to be able to have a traditional match day on March 21st for their next home game. Seattle right now has not had the order made, but it's reportedly going to happen potentially as early as today. So their next home match could be at risk. And we've talked about it. Major League Soccer teams draw a large amount of their revenue, a large percentage of their revenue from match day. It's not like the UEFA Champions League. It's not like England or Germany where TV is such a huge part for them and they can keep going forward behind closed doors with games, although even today we're seeing now that that might not always be the case with England and Arsenal with a bit of a scare. So the Arsenal-Manchester City game has been postponed today, a league match. It's going to continue to evolve and change, and there's just no way to predict it. There's no way to predict how all these things are going to go. You just have to stay informed and keep up with what's going on, and it's got to be safety first. It's got to be safety first. There is the concern about overreacting in some ways, and you hope that doesn't happen, but with everything happening around the world with this, it has to be safety first. And FIFA has a tough decision with World Cup qualifiers starting because it's not like from a World Cup qualifying perspective, you have a bunch of extra room in the calendar to just push games back. You have very few windows to get things done. You might have to see formats change for World Cup qualifying because you're not going to be able to get the games in to have teams qualify or not qualify. There's the potential, and it's been reported in Europe that Euro 2020 could be postponed actually to 21 because of leagues that are dealing with postponements in league play needing to play later into the calendar to get games in and get competitions defined because it's almost like a domino effect when you start looking at competitions and scheduling and calendars because if leagues get postponed, games get postponed, that's going to bump into Euro 2020. If you push that back, then you're going to get games in, but you have to get them in by a certain time because you have to get European qualifiers for Champions League, for Europa League, for all of their competitions for next year done. You've got a lot of moving parts, and it's going to be very hard to figure out. And we're just going to have to wait and see in a lot of ways and react accordingly as things develop.
Chris Hutchison, with his hashtag bend the curve on a wall past Wednesday, says, I wonder how long it will be before MLS starts canceling matches. I think we go to postponements and reschedulings before we get to outright canceling, though.
Yeah, you're not going to cancel anything right now because MLS is in a different situation where you're very early in the league season. And, even with the playoff format and all of that being set up the way it is. First, the international windows could change a bit later in the year because of all this. So the playoff format might have the ability to change easily, but a lot of it comes back to you're not going to cancel these games because these games are one of the biggest economic drivers. So they're going to get postponed. And if that means a game happens on a Wednesday when it's supposed to happen on a weekend, or it means the end of the season gets pushed back and you just push things further back behind those windows, you might have to. And it's so early in the season for MLS, I don't think you're going to have to get into a cancellation situation. I think it will be a postponement and the schedule will be rearranged. It's just it's going to be some tough decisions. And it's going to be tough to compare even across all the American professional sports because the NBA and Major League Baseball are in completely different situations. The National Hockey League are in different situations than MLS when it comes to revenues and game day revenues versus TV revenues and sponsorship contracts and what they can and can't do. And it's gonna be very hard across the board. But I think MLS has been on top of it, and they're watching, they're observing, and they're gonna get, I think, forced into action probably first with that San Jose game, not this weekend, but next weekend, that right now can't occur in San Jose.
Nitoga 95 back in with an Atlanta United question this morning. Did the team take only 18 players to Mexico, or did they bring more than 18 with the intention of deciding who will play tonight at the last minute, and whom did they bring to Mexico?
I do not share that type of information, folks. Sorry. I am not, can't do that. Sworn to secrecy. Also, I was not counting, so I was not tracking it because it's not something that is part of my gig. I mean, I was lucky to be invited to be a part of going to the Estadio Azteca last night. So it was not my gig to break that stuff down. That stuff is made public by the team when the time is there for it to be made public. And it's something that, you know, I'm not a reporter, and I know sometimes like roles can get blurry in the way that modern media is, but that's not something I do, and it's something that I am not ever comfortable doing. And most of the time, it's something that I don't know. And last night, look, we were doing a lot of different things. I saw just the general mood of training, but I wasn't looking at who was there. I think we can kind of go by process of elimination with injuries to see who was part of the group, but I wasn't tracking it because it's not something I ever share. In my role, it's not something I do. It's not something I'm comfortable doing. So, sorry, folks. I apologize.
Not your story to tell.
No, no.
Somebody else's.
we're going to take a break here, and we're going to get Doug Robertson on the line. This is part of Doug's story to tell, but Doug will be telling us what he thinks about tonight's match, and also looking ahead a little bit to Kansas City and just balancing everything for Atlanta United in the short term. So hang out with us. We'll be right back after this.
I loved playing high school sports. I loved the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, all the pageantry, and I wanted to keep playing. But I graduated. No colleges called, and neither did the pros. So, to stay close to the game I loved, I decided to become a high school official. You know, a referee. When I played high school sports, I learned the importance of integrity, good sportsmanship, and respect for the rules. Now, as a high school official, I get to help model these same values to others. Maybe the colleges and the pros didn't call, but the kids in Georgia did. And now, I'm enjoying the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, and all the pageantry of high school sports all over again.
Interested in becoming a licensed high school official? Go to highschoolofficials.com to learn more and begin the application process.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. I don't know if we're going to get the full hour, but we'll get close. Soccer Down Here, March 11th, Atlanta and Club America tonight, CONCACAF Champions League. It's going to be a very, very interesting match. Some interesting things were said yesterday to the media. Miguel Herrera was very pointed in saying that they are the Giants and they are the team that everybody is measured against, and we'll find out how Atlanta measures against Club America tonight. On the line with us, Doug Robertson of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Make sure you're following him, Doug Robertson, AJC, on Twitter, Atlanta United News Now on Facebook. How are you, Doug?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Good. Getting ready for this one tonight. This is going to be a late night in Atlanta. It's going to be a very interesting match between two teams that I think have a ton of ambition. You had a chance to talk to Frank DeBoer before the team departed for Mexico. What did you take out of that conversation as to kind of where the mood and vibe of the group is at the moment?
They know this is going to be very, very tough. They said point blank, a draw would be a good result. Even a 1-0 loss would be a good result. They want to attack and they want to win, but they are, they're smart people. They know what they're up against: the venue, the altitude, the team, the motivation. It's put it all together, combined with all their injuries, and it's going to be a very difficult situation. But they kept saying they're comfortable, they can manage it. They've done it for the first 4 games this year, and they think they can do it again.
And Doug, we always talk about style of play in tournaments like this, and I think that it's a different distinction to make when you're being pragmatic about something versus being defensive or negative about something. And I think that the point that you make about with injuries and still getting acquainted with folks and still adding folks lends itself to being pragmatic game by game, and this just happens to be in a hemispheric competition against one of the giants in the hemisphere. So it's pragmatic tonight, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that would be disappointed if Atlanta United wouldn't go out there and attack is just being unrealistic. Even though Club America has its own injuries, it's still a very, very good team. We really don't know how serious it was taking the Campeones Cup last year. I think it thought after it got that first goal against Atlanta United that the team would roll over, and they found out that it didn't. So I do expect Club America to come out and try to get that first goal tonight. If they do, I don't think they're going to let the foot off the gas at all. So it's going to be very, very important for Atlanta United to kind of get through that first 15, 20 minutes or so.
How are you shooting, by the way? Because I hear birds in the background.
Oh, I'm okay. That's CBS piping in bird noises.
Yeah. I'm with you, Doug. I think Club America is going to come in and be very aggressive early on as Atlanta tries to adjust. The conditions are going to be a factor. The altitude, the venue, the air quality is a factor. It's all going to factor in here. And we've seen, whether it is, in other venues, but also dealing with the same types of issues, we've seen Liga MX teams generally really go at MLS teams early on as they try to adjust. What have you seen so far out of Atlanta United to make you think that they can handle that early onslaught?
Well, they haven't really faced that, I don't think, yet. Cincinnati kind of stayed back a little bit. Motagua, they attacked a lot in the first half, but not like I think we're going to see Club America do it. And in the season opening game at Nashville didn't really attack a whole lot either. So this is going to be kind of a new thing for Atlanta United this season. They obviously have muscle memory. They've seen it before. Red Bulls. Actually, I mean, this is going to sound odd, but the friendly against the Swedish club Elfsborg might have been the best preparation for what I think they're going to see tonight. Elfsborg pressed them into their own penalty box very aggressively. I think that's kind of what Club America is going to try to do tonight. Really attack hard in the first 10 minutes, really attack hard in the last 10 minutes when Atlanta United's legs are worn out, and see if they can sneak a couple of goals.
So then, I mean, obviously everyone's eyes gravitate toward PT and Barco. Give me somebody on that next level that you have spot shadowed where you sit there and say, okay, if I'm looking at X individual for Atlanta United to get done what they want to get done at the Estadio Azteca, who's that second level guy that you're looking for?
Well, we all remember the job Nagby did last year against Club of America. I think that the combination of Heinemann and if it's Rometty or if it's Larinowitz, those are going to be two guys tonight that have to do that job and cut down those passing lanes and those central channels. And if they can win the ball, get it going as quickly as possible to Pity or Barco and see if they can spring a counter.
Yeah, I'll add Fernando Meza into that conversation as well. I think a big game from him will have a huge impact on Atlanta United's chances. And he's a player who, has a little bit of experience in this venue and has experience playing against Club America. That should help this team who, a lot of them went through the experience with Campeones Cup last year, but they didn't do it in Mexico City. And it's a whole different animal here. Meza, his calmness, I think, can really help this group. What have you liked from him so far in the season?
Just that. He's very calm. He's a lot better in the air than we thought. He's not as tall as Leandro. He's probably a few inches shorter, actually. But he's winning a lot of his aerial battles. He's good with the ball at his feet. You could see him communicating out there to his teammates. I appreciated about his play so far this year. He has made a couple of spotty decisions, but that happens. It's also a shame that Edgar Castillo isn't healthy because he also has extensive experience at Estadio Azteca, and he would have been a really big benefit on that left for the team, but I don't think he's available either.
No, he's not. 100%. Yeah, he would have been a huge help.
One of our listeners, Doug, this morning actually addressed Fernando Meza and said it might be blasphemy, but Meza seems better than LGP, and he wanted to know if he was wrong. I would just say that Meza is different than LGP.
Yeah, I don't know how you say better or I mean, I guess it's easy to say worse, but it's really hard to quantify better. But I mean, they've given up 2 goals in their first 2 league games, and what was it at the first leg against Motagua? 1 goal. So 3 goals in 4 games. That's a pretty good sign of a good spine in your defense.
100%. And Mesa is a big part of that, but it's also been contributions from maybe some unexpected players. Anton Walk seeing a lot of time early on, Lawrence White, and then George Campbell. It's been, I think, very difficult to get through this early portion of the season for Atlanta United defensively, but as you said, the defense has been pretty solid. You have to give, where do you give the credit to that? Is it Mesa's calmness? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the players who are stepping up? What do you kind of lean to in that?
Well, I think you would be remiss if you didn't mention the quality of the opposition, which frankly has not been great. They really haven't faced what I think anybody would consider a top-notch offense or striker yet, and that will change tonight. So I think it's a combination of just talent, experience. People were still arguing with me yesterday that Walks isn't a center back, and couldn't play center back. My mind boggles at these claims.
He has, and he's played it pretty well so far this season.
I know. He came up through Tottenham playing center back.
Right.
He played it he never played fullback until Atlanta United.
Well, actually, go back to his first appearance for Atlanta United in the first match. He came in as a center back. That was where his background was.
Right, and then he played fullback, and I quoted him after the game saying, I haven't played it before. Or it was like maybe just a couple of games in the past.
Yeah.
So anyway, but Walks has played well, Mesa has played well, and Campbell or White have stepped in. They played well. Escobar, he seemed to kind of calm down a little bit and was playing better than at times last season. But again, it's unfortunate that he just cannot stay on the field for various reasons. But yeah, so I think it's a combination of just, experience, communication, and the quality of the opposition has helped Atlanta United on defense.
And as you look at Choice D, all the above, I mean, it's going to be that much more important because you're coming off of a match against FC Cincinnati. It's regen, figured out for a day, hop on a plane. You're practicing, getting familiar with your environment. You've got a match. You leave as soon as you possibly can to come back. And then it's another day of regen, and then you're getting ready for a different and a healthy Sporting Kansas City team. I think that at this point of the season, when you're dealing with this kind of schedule compression, I think that getting all of this depth that we've seen on display is a good thing for later when everyone is presumably healthy, but you're getting these early looks at guys like Campbell and White and that kind of a thing. I think it's good to have this prism for later, even though they're being pressed into service now.
Yeah, very much so. I asked Frank if seeing them now kind of would ease any concern he might have about playing them down the road. And he said, no, my history is I play young guys. If they show it in training, they'll show it in the game. So, he said, quote, I think it was something like, I'm very proud of the guys and they should all be proud of their debuts, etc.
Yeah, it's a lot of debuts, a lot more debuts than maybe you would have expected, but that's the year that Atlanta United has had so far. Let's get into some predictions. This is a tough one to kind of nail down because a loss isn't really truly a loss just yet, because you do have a second leg next week in Kennesaw. A loss isn't a bad thing. A lot of it depends on how the loss can go. We've got a variety of choices that have been given to us so far. You can also weigh in at the Bailey Daily poll, jbailey86 on Twitter. We've retweeted it from Soccer Down Here as well. You can vote in the poll presented by Appolinsky and Associates. Let's see. How different do I want to mix this up? Because John usually just takes other people's picks. So before I give any picks, John, why don't you go first?
Of course. So this one's going to be me learning my lesson from last week. And since I didn't give the 2-1 score line, guess what happened? The 2-1 score line. So I'm going to go 2-1 Club America. I think Atlanta gets the road goal, and then I think they bring it home in the second leg, and it's going to be a raucous time for some hashtag action at the fraction next week.
Yeah, you had to work that one in too, didn't you?
Darn right I did.
All right, Nick Alifi is with you on the 2-1 Club America. I believe Jess is with you on the 2-1 Club America as well. So you've got some friends hanging out in the 2-1 section. Doug, what are you thinking?
I think it's going to be 2-0 Club America. I just think Atlanta United, all the factors are going to combine, and it's going to be difficult for them. And it's not a knock against Atlanta United. It's more just a reflection of all the factors we've already discussed.
100%. We talked about this yesterday on our Facebook Live over at 92.9 The Game. The question came in is, what was the most difficult scoreline that you think Atlanta United could suffer in this one, but still have a chance of advancing? 2-0 was that for me. I think if it's no away goals and it gets past 2-0, it's going to be not impossible, but pretty close to it in Kennesaw next week. 2-0, if you take it 2-0 in Kennesaw, you're going to penalties. Then you start worrying about away goals and how things can go. But that's about as bad of a loss as you can take and still have hope in Kennesaw, in my opinion, anyway. It's going to be tough. I mean, I don't think that's completely out of line at all, Doug. It's going to be very, very tough. Jarrett Smith is very optimistic this morning. He is 2-2. Kelly Francis is maybe a little less optimistic, but close, 1-1. It's tough. Club America is not fielding its maybe best 11 because they had the match with Pumas last weekend. They have a match with Cruz Azul this weekend. They don't have anything guaranteed in league play. I do think there's opportunities down the left side for Atlanta United tonight. Giovanni Dos Santos is not exactly known for dropping back and defending. Luis Fuentes is a veteran player, but also at 33. You might be able to run at him and take advantage of him. I think Atlanta can find a goal, and I'm actually going to go 1-1 on this. I don't think they can keep Club America off the board. I think something's going to happen in this one. Federico Viñas has been Club America's top scorer. He'll be available off the bench in this one, and if Club America has to go find something, that's a player they could turn to. Martin had a late equalizer against Pumas. Club America has a lot of distractions at the moment, so I don't think they're going to be at their best, and Atlanta might be able to take advantage of that. If they do, I think it's down the right side. I think they attack down Club America's left side, and if Atlanta's going to get the kind of result that I'm hoping for, Brooks Lennon has to have a big day or get some help from Barco, from Heineman drifting over to help with that. Doug, let everybody know what's coming up from you the rest of the week, and we'll talk to you again on Friday as we get closer to Kansas City and previewing that one. But what do you have coming up between now and then?
Well, I posted my predicted 11. I asked folks for their predicted 11. Some of them I thought were really good. Some of them are really out there. One guy had 3 guys who've never started for Atlanta United before in the lineup, and another who's only made 1 start in his career in the lineup. So I thought that was really interesting. If you want to share yours with me, it's at Doug Robertson AJC on Twitter. And then tonight I'll have a game story up, probably not as soon as the game ends because that'll be 12:30 and no one's going to be up reading. But there'll be something there, and then I'll update it. We're supposed to have a teleconference with Frank tonight, and I'll add that information into it. Then I'll probably do a Southern Fried Soccer solo podcast, and then whatever follows come from the game. You'll see on AJC.com and on my Twitter handle again at Doug Robertson AJC on Thursday. Then we get to talk with Frank and Players TBD on Friday about Sporting Kansas City.
I heard of him. He's got a good left foot.
I think 2 points out of the next 2 games would be a very, very good set of results for Atlanta United.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a very crowded part of the schedule, and Atlanta's going to have to suffer through it a little shorthanded. Hopefully we get some good updates on Friday about Miles Robinson, Franco Escobar, Edgar Castillo, their recovery, and see where this group can be for the weekend. But tonight's going to be a difficult challenge for Atlanta United. Doug, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you on Friday.
All right, guys. Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Fairways and greens.
Doug Robertson from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Make sure you're following him. Doug Robertson, AJC, Atlanta United News Now on Facebook, Doug Robertson, AJC on Twitter. All right, what else do we have on the timeline this morning?
bunch of predictions from folks. So
Let's
we will
run
go
through some
through them.
predictions from folks.
Chris Hutchison, Club America 2-1. Daniel Price, 1-0 Atlanta, I believe, and he posted his starting 11. We'll get to that in a little bit. Mr. Green, the Falcoholic, 1-1 draw. Who sets you scores to put us up a goal at the half with a PT assist. America levels at the death after at least 5 minutes of second half stoppage time.
Could be. Could happen. We've seen lots of stoppage time in moments in CONCACAF. Depending on how it goes, but one interesting thing is I've had ESPN in Mexico on this morning, and 11 o'clock is when their ESPN AM show started, and they have talked for 18 minutes about Club America and Atlanta tonight and all the different aspects of it. So it's a big game. I mean, it's a big game down here, and it's going to have that big game feel. Looks like the weather should be good, which would allow for a pretty big walk-up crowd. I've heard predictions of the crowd all over the place, to be honest. I had heard predictions of a fairly small crowd ahead of time. I've heard the 50,000 prediction. A lot of it's going to be a walk-up because these games are not part of any kind of a season ticket package. Season ticket packages are not really the same in other parts of the world as they are in the United States. So it's going to be a big walk-up crowd tonight if the weather stays as good as it is now. I don't think there's any real threat of rain or anything like that tonight. So the pitch felt pretty good. It was a little soft even, walking around on it last night. So the football lines are still there, which is just really weird. But the actual look of the field and just walking through different portions, it's fine. It'll play pretty well. I think that little bit of it being soft is interesting to see how that plays. We'll see if it comes up in any spots as the night goes on. It looked really good. It felt really good walking through. We'll see how it holds up under competition tonight.
Joey Logan with his anticipated starting 11. PB&J up top. Midfield, Mulraney, Remedi, Heineman. Back four. Walks, Lorenowitz, Meza, Lennon with Brad Gazan in net.
Okay, let's go through Joey's lineup one more time because I want to see how he's thinking about it. He sometimes can go outside the box with his lineup predictions.
Looks like a 4-3-3 as it is structured.
Okay.
PB&J up top. Midfield, Mulraney on the left, Remedi in the middle, Heineman on the right. Then his back four, left to right, Walks, Lorenowitz, Meza, and Lennon.
I'm not so sure they go to four in the back. That's the biggest element of it. I know, look, center back, there's just not a lot of options right now. That is definitely a fact. But I don't know if this team goes to four because I think they play so much better with a 3-4-3. If you go to four, I think that four from Joey Logan would make a lot of sense with Walks being on the left and being kind of a auxiliary center back. Because if you look at Joey's lineup and you spin it just a little bit and you pull Mulraney back to a wing back, you have Lennon step up as a wing back, and you have Walks, Lorenowitz, and Meza as center backs, I could see that playing out absolutely. Remedi, Heineman, they've played together all year, wouldn't be surprised. Barco Pitti, John. A lot of it is just the reconfiguration of this with Joey's setup. So could it start like this and then shift? Yep. Could it start like a 3-4-3 and shift to this? Yep. You've got a lot of different possibilities. The only thing in terms of the way Joey has it lined up that I don't see happening is a three flat midfield, because that just doesn't really happen anymore. And Mulraney hasn't played centrally. He's not a central guy. He's not going to play as a left winger and Heineman as a right winger with Remedi as a solo central midfielder. It won't play that way. It can't. There's no balance. So I think if you take this 11 and turn it to the 3-4-3 shape, I can see it. And that would be a little more conservative. And let's look at, I think a lot of people think 4-3-3 could be more conservative. A 3-4-3 gives you the ability to drop into a 5-4-1 really easily because your wing backs just drop into outside backs. That can be more conservative if needed. And that can be moments where Mulraney and Lennon pick their spots. They catch their breath, they drop back, they defend, and then when they have the opportunity to go, they do. I could see a 3-4-3 that looks more like a line of 5 at times tonight, more so than a 4-3-3 that there's not as much room to sit back and rest and defend.
Yeah, in looking at Joey's lineup, I was going to take the midfield and that back four that he had, and I was going to turn the knob to the left one, so that way Lennon is on the right, Mulraney's on the left, and then centrally you had Remedi and Escobar with that back three of Walks, Lorenowitz, and Meza.
Yeah, I think the personnel that Joey has in his, I could absolutely see. It's going to be interesting tonight. It really is. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for Club America to predict what Atlanta United's going to do because Atlanta's still figuring out how they're going to play without Joseph. The back line is definitely up for debate. Does George Bello come back into the team straight away? Does he come off the bench? Do you throw a wild card out there in a Josetu starting? I would not see Castro starting at all, but do you see Manuel Castro tonight? I think that's absolutely a possibility because of the fresh legs. Some of it will depend on how the match goes, but you're going to be looking for sparks off the bench. So you want both. You want a good starting lineup, but you also want the ability to have something off the bench to change it. And could that be Josetu? Yes. Could it be Castro? Yep. Could you start with some other configuration, leave John out of the starting lineup, then bring him on late? Yep. You could do that too. There's going to be lots of different ways this could play. And Club America can put an 11 out there and display that confidence. But they have to be wondering a little bit about what Atlanta's going to do tonight. Because I think all of us are wondering about what Atlanta's going to do tonight. With the injuries, that does create a lot of confusion for an opponent in how to prepare for how they're going to play. If Club America is truly in a 4-4-2, kind of a 4-4-2 empty bucket, with Dos Santos on the left, he's going to want to tuck inside. Ibargüen is going to want to drift out wide at times, and he's also going to want to stay very high up the field. I don't know how defensively secure this Club America lineup is going to look like. And I wonder how Atlanta can take advantage of it. A couple other things on the Club America side that I've seen here. The whole issue with Renato Ibarra, that has not been talked about as much today. It was all over the media yesterday. The club did mention in the afternoon that they're not going to take a decision on anything about his future with Club America until the case is completed. So the speculation about being able to terminate his contract, they can, but they haven't done that as of yet. So that's been pushed to the back burner. Roger Martinez is a player who is registered for CONCACAF Champions League. There were some questions about that. He returned to the team in training last Wednesday, came off the bench in the match against Pumas, could come off the bench in the one tonight. He could be a late option up top. Henry Martin, 27 years old, is your number 9 for Club America tonight. He played for Herrera at Xolos. He scored that late stoppage time equalizer on Friday night against Pumas. He's in a good run of form at the moment, but he's not the top goal scorer for this team. Martinez has been that over the years. Viñas is that guy right now, young Uruguayan who is on loan with the team. He's got 3 goals and 4 appearances. He'll be available off the bench. They're really missing Nico Castillo, the Chilean, who's only played 1 time in the Clausura. He missed the Campeones Cup last year. He's out with a hamstring injury now. They're really missing him. They're going to be looking to Giovanni Dos Santos to give them some support in the attack. They're going to be looking to Ibargüen, who has typically played on the left side, had a big night in the Campeones Cup match. But I want to see the positioning with him and Giovanni Dos Santos. It's been reported here in the media that it would be Dos Santos on the left, Ibargüen centrally. I could see that flipping. I could see it playing more like a 4-2-3-1 with Ibargüen as a left winger, with Giovanni Dos Santos as a number 10 behind Martin. That would give you a little more support on that left side. Ibargüen's not exactly known for his defensive prowess either, but it would be a little more secure if they do that. there's going to be a lot of gamesmanship in this tonight. We've talked about the dark arts. You're going to see a lot of it on display. It is all part of CONCACAF. It is all part of this international competition. Atlanta United's going to have to keep their heads in those moments and manage this for the full 180 minutes. Tonight's match is the start of it. It is not the conclusion of it. And how Atlanta handles the early portion of the match, where Club America will probably really come at them, how they handle the final 10 minutes of the halves, where they're starting to really feel fatigue, how they handle the opening to the second half, where Club America could make some tweaks to their to their lineup, to their tactics. How Atlanta handles moments in this match is what's going to decide it for me. I mean, tactics and lineups and formations, and we can go into all that all day. I think what decides it tonight is how Atlanta handles the difficult moments in the match tonight. If they handle them well, they're going to be very happy coming out of the Estadio Azteca, whether that's happy with a win, happy with a road goal, happy with a narrow loss, happy with a draw, whatever. If they handle those difficult moments tonight, Atlanta United will be happy when they leave the building.
All right, more predictions. Joey Logan has amended his lineup, putting Hasechu in for Heinemann.
Okay, no, that's a big change. I don't think you're taking Emerson Heinemann out of the lineup right now. Playing too well. I would not take him out. And I don't know if you're ready to take Remedi out either. I think Remedi had a really good match on the weekend. So Josetu could start. I don't know if it would be in place of Heinemann. And I don't know if he's quite ready for that start yet. I think it's a bit of a risk to bring him in from the start. But does he play a role tonight? Yes, I think he actually plays a pretty important role. He could come on at halftime and give you 45 minutes, but also give you a different player in that 45 minutes. That's the kind of role I would expect for him. I don't think he starts.
Michael Head, hopefully Club America 2 Atlanta United 1 would give us a chance to advance next week, and that seems to be the popular score line here on the timeline. Ricky Ricardo has 2-1 Club America, with Atlanta getting a goal from Barco in the last 10 minutes. Let's see. Daniel Price's lineup has PB&J. He has Hasechu starting with a 3-4-3. Mulraney, Remedi, Heinemann, and Hasechu on the right, with back three of Walks, Mesa, and Lennon. Zixq, ZXYQU. I've yet to figure out how to pronounce that. And all the time that Z has been on the timeline. A 2-1 loss would not be a bad score given what we're facing. We need an away goal, then some returning players' luck on the return leg. Matthew Balti saying Atlanta gets a great result. A 1-1 draw would mean a raucous hashtag action at the fraction next week. He put it in there. I did not. Just so you know. Matthew Balti did the action at the fraction. Let's see. Joe McCurdy, Club America 3, Atlanta United. They didn't take a fault for us. Barco and Heinemann finally stopped. But good news, we do the same to them at the fraction at Soccer Down here.
All right, hold that thought, John, because you were breaking up a lot there. What was Joe McCurdy's prediction?
Club America 3, Atlanta United 0.
Okay.
I think it's a wake-up call for us. Barco and Heinemann finally stopped, but good news, we do the same to them at the fraction.
And that would send it to penalties. 3-0 would be a really difficult one to come back from. 2-0 would be the one that would be difficult, but I think Atlanta could find a way back from that. 3, because then you're getting into Monterrey territory, and it's so hard to go into a match knowing that you've got to have 3 goals to level it, and you can't give anything up, or you got to find 5, and it's just, that one would be upsetting tonight, Joe. Now that you've brought that into the floor, I'm feeling quite sad.
Okay. Sorry. Joey Logan's lineup did not change. That's what I get for reading the timeline going up all the way through. His substitution pattern has Hasechu for Heinemann and Castro for John.
Okay, and some of that's going to be down to the moments in the match, so it's almost impossible to predict substitutions. Castro, DeBoer said he could be available for up to 30 minutes. I don't know if that will be a ready, set, 60-minute sub, or if it will be he can play up to 30, and it's going to depend on how the match goes. I would think that's going to be the case for all. depending on where you're at halftime, Hosetu, I think, could give you 45. I'd be fine with that if he can. But it's just going to depend on if he's needed. If things are working well, I don't think you want to tweak it just to do it. And we'll just have to see where it goes. I don't know if Heineman would be the one that I would expect to come off. I think he might be one of the more multifaceted in the midfield, unless he's just having a bad night, and then you have to make the change. But Josetu and Castro off the bench as difference makers tonight, yeah, I could see that. I just don't know when or for who. It's just going to depend on how the match is going.
Two more before we go on the timeline, if there's anything else that you have to talk about. Nightoga 9-5 with a 3-2. Walks, Meza, and Campbell starting. Remedi and Lorenowitz ahead of them. Heineman, Hasechi Mulraney, Pitti as a false 9, and Barco with the reserves posted.
But these are the things we talk about with shape. You have no balance with that. You have no width with that. And when you look at a Club America side that can play out wide and play very well out wide, you can't risk it that much. That kind of formation where you're very narrow, it's just really limiting. I don't think the Azteca is a place for it, where you need more cover to cover ground. You need more people to cover ground as opposed to asking wide players to drift out. It's something that Atlanta's never played, so I wouldn't expect to see it tonight. It'd be a huge, curveball for Club America, but I think they could take advantage of it out wide. I mean, if that's the case, if I saw that team come out against me, and I've got Ibargüen right now as a second forward, immediately once I see what the shape is going to be, it's, Ibargüen, Gio, change. Ibargüen, stay out as far wide as you can and stretch the game and make somebody come out to you and pull their team apart. There's too many issues with a 3-2-3-2 that is that narrow. You just don't have the width.
And then the last prediction on the board this morning, Austin Arvidsson, Atlanta 2, Club America 1. PT has his best game ever for the Five Stripes and scores on a free kick. John also gets one.
Look, I can tell you last night, and Pitti posted it on his Instagram story, but Pitti, Barco, Remedi, Meza, Argentines coming into this building, it has a special place in the heart of Argentine soccer. It's one of two venues that Argentina's won a World Cup in. It's the only one that they've won a World Cup in outside of their own country. And you can kind of feel the ghosts of the Azteca a little bit. And look, from an Argentine perspective, those ghosts are pretty friendly. And for a player like Pitti, who is revered in Argentina and has been compared to the greats over his career, to have a moment tonight at the Azteca, well, it would be all over Argentine TV tomorrow, and it would be talked about as a legendary kind of performance. For a player like Barco to have a night like that tonight, it would truly be that coming out party for a young talent like Ezequiel Barco. You're going to have those players who are incredibly motivated because of the setting, and that's a unique element to this one. So Pitti tonight, I could absolutely see him having a huge night. He's had a huge season so far. He's been, honestly, in my mind, since the early portion of last season where he was tired and looked stressed just due to everything that was changing for him, new type of manager, new league, no rest in the off season, the pressure of replacing Miguel Almiron, and the number 10 shirt for Atlanta, all those things, I think, weighed heavily on him. When that broke free for him last year, he was very good, and he's even better this year. He looks comfortable, he looks happy, he looks, just no pressure on him. He really feels like a player who's in that moment. And he could have one of those nights tonight. If he does, it's a night that will go down in Atlanta United history. And it's a night that will go down for Pitti Martinez as a special night for him in his playing history. So I would love to see that for him because I think he deserves that. I think he's a player who It's not just local, it's been national. He's a player who's been questioned a lot. He's a player who gets questioned a lot in his career. He's a special talent, and these are the kinds of stages that special talents can rise to the occasion on. So I would love to see Pity Martinez have that kind of night and carry this team to a historic performance and a historic result.
Before we go, Easter candy purveyors tonight. For those of you that have some spare Easter candy that you may want to lose and just sit there and put it on the middle of the table, Club America is at minus 250 now, up from minus 223 to win. The draw option is plus 350. Atlanta United is at plus 550. The early match tonight, New York City FC and Tigres, both teams are at plus 155. Your draw option is at plus 250.
So I'm going to take... I'm going to take a... Man, I don't know what I want to put on this. I'm going to take a good chocolate bunny. Not a generic one, not a bad one, not a Reese's one, but a good one.
Not a Reese? Okay,
no,
just check.
No, settle down. A good chocolate bunny, and I'm going to put it on the draw. I don't think that's a crazy expectation tonight. It's not going to be easy. It could get away. We've seen it in this competition. Sometimes games drift away from teams as the night goes on. Hopefully for Atlanta that does not happen. It's going to be a huge test, and we'll get a really good sense of where this team is against top competition tonight. Club America has a lot to prove themselves. They have laid down the gauntlet that they are the team to measure against in not just this continent, but this hemisphere. Atlanta United wants to be that team. So how do you become that team? You beat the other big team in their house, or you get a draw in their house, and you have the advantage going into the home leg. We'll see if Atlanta United can do that tonight. So broadcast plans. We will have another Facebook Live, myself, Mike Conti, today, this afternoon sometime, probably in the 2 o'clock Eastern time frame or so. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be at facebook.com/929thegame. We will be on at 10:30 Eastern. There will not be a Five Stripes countdown. We'll be coming in straight after Hawks action, so actually could be a few minutes early. Make sure you're following Longshoe and Mike Conti 929 for when we go live. But we will be live at 10:30 at the latest, and be ready to give you coverage from the Estadio Azteca. There will not be a full-time report tonight because we have a plane to catch. So we'll have probably an extended wrap-up segment, but not a full-time report tonight. Hope you can join us. You can listen on 92.9 The Game. You can listen on radio.com. You can also listen on the Atlanta United app. The game's on FS2. The game is on 2Day NA. This is a special kind of night in Atlanta United's history, and the opportunity is there to write some history this evening, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if this team can do that. It's going to be a fun night at the Azteca. We'll be back tomorrow to talk all about it. Our roles will reverse. I will be back in Atlanta. John will still be in Mexico, just because, that's just fun to switch positions and switch locations on everybody. So that's going to happen.
Accurate.
Yeah, that's going to happen tomorrow early evening because we'll be flying back overnight, and I would like to sleep at some point tomorrow. So we will shoot for a 5 o'clock Eastern show tomorrow. But, again, stay tuned. This has been one of those weeks where start times and finish times and all of that is up for grabs. So we thank you for listening. We thank you all for bearing with us this week. And hope to hear you guys and feel you guys tonight. There's going to be some Atlanta United fans in the Estadio Azteca tonight. I know there are some making the trip, but we'll feel the support from y'all back in Atlanta. I know there's a lot of watch parties all over town, and this is one of those nights. It could go down in history if Atlanta can pull off a result at the Azteca against Club America. There will be plenty to talk about tomorrow. I think that was a very safe prediction to make. thank you for listening. Thanks for spreading the word. Thanks for all the feedback this week. We appreciate it. John, any final words before you catch a plane?
Matt Wagner, hello Tito 2.0, 1-0 Atlanta. Castro gets a banging Golazo in the 86th. Coach Ice Trey is going to catch up with us later. 3-1 Atlanta. Early goal in the first half. Tight air is a true Golazo, one of the absolute best we'll see in 2020. Pushkas Award contender, according to Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic. I'm going to catch a plane. I will see you in a little while.
Yep, and we'll be talking to you all tomorrow. We'll be talking to you on 92.9 The Game and Elements there. I'll also be on with Jason Davis, United States of Soccer on Sirius XM-FC at 12:20, and then on with Andy and Randy on 92.9 The Game at 1:20, and then we'll have a Facebook, and then I'll stop talking at some point and probably take a nap. So, until then, mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata.